Hello, welcome to He's Hop is Something Is Off with me, just Joey T. This week, it's another special episode of the podcast, and today we're going to deep dive into the recently announced Atlantis Exotic Caribbean cruise that's sailing February into March of 2025. Now, last week's episode, we did a similar deep dive into the also recently announced Atlantis Thanksgiving cruise that's sailing at the end of November of this year, 2024. And because both of these cruises are sailing on the same ship, some of what I'm going to say today, where it pertains to the actual ship itself and the cruise line, which is Virgin Voyages, it's going to be a bit of a repeat of last week. But because some listeners might be tuning into this episode just to find out about this particular exotic Caribbean cruise for 2025, I'm going to make sure they don't miss out on any of the Virgin or ship-specific info. And also, if you're interested in the Thanksgiving cruise that Atlantis has announced for later this year, go and listen to my last week's podcast when I did a deep dive on that. So with that, let's get right into it. So, official name, this is the Virgin Exotic Caribbean Cruise. It's going to sail from February 22nd, 2025, and it's going to return on March the 1st. So that's 7 nights right there, standard 1-week cruise. It's going to be based out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. So on February 22nd, it'll sail from San Juan, and it will come back there on March the 1st, a week later. So it's the same ship as I was talking about on the Thanksgiving cruise last week. It's going to be on Virgin Voyages. That's the cruise line, and is on the Resilient Lady. For those who are not that familiar with Virgin Voyages, which is possible because they haven't been sailing for that long. They've been operating in earnest really only for about 2 or 3 years now. So they have just a few ships, but all the ships are brand new. They designed their own ships. All the ships are kind of like a mid-size ship, and they take about 27 to 2,800 passengers at maximum capacity. That's if you fill up every single bed and fill up every cabin with the maximum number of occupants that each room is going to hold. So that's actually a pretty nice size ship. Sometimes you get these like mega ships, like the Oasis class ships from Royal Caribbean. They max out at over 5,500 passengers at maximum capacity. And it's a few issues with some of those larger ships. Obviously, it's harder to get from one venue to another. Just a lot more walking, for sure. And sometimes when you have that many more people, like almost double the amount of people on board compared to one of these like Virgin-size, mid-size ships, it's a little harder to like run into people again. This is totally true. You can run into like people and never see them again for the rest of the cruise. That's how big the ship is, and that's how many people go on them, especially when they sell out. But I think for most people, something like a 2,500 to like 3,000 person capacity ship, it's actually a really, really nice size. All the Virgin ships have pretty much the exact same design. They just have like a few different copies of them. So this one is about 27 to 2,800 passengers maximum. Some of the cool things that Virgin does in terms of how they operate their cruises are really, really great. For example, you get free basic Wi-Fi included as part of your fare. You get 2 devices for each person. They also have a paid upgrade to a premium Wi-Fi service if you want streaming for videos, for example. But it's so nice that they just throw the Wi-Fi in there. And like the Virgin cruises, the fares are not really like that much more expensive. It's not like so much more expensive than a Disney cruise or like a Royal Caribbean cruise or Celebrity cruise or whatever. It's just like, in some ways, it's just better value, like with the Wi-Fi included. Another thing I love that Virgin includes on all of the cruises is basic non-alcoholic beverages. And I've got exactly what's included here from the Virgin website. It's still in sparkling water, non-pressed juices, sodas, sachet teas, and drip coffee. So alcohol, you still need to pay and buy those. But most cruise lines, in case you're not familiar, you've not done cruising before, for example, they don't give you anything usually. If you go to a restaurant, yeah, they're going to have like water for you. But in a lot of cruise lines, you go to a restaurant, you order a soda, that they're going to charge you for that soda unless you have pre-purchase a soda package beforehand or something like that. Even just like a Pepsi is gonna cost you money. So the fact that they include these things for free as part of like the base fare is really, really nice. And Virgin is actually a 18 plus cruise line, and it was that way right from the start of the company. So before they even done the designs for the ship, they already kind of set it up so that everything's 18 plus. A lot of cruise ships, physically, the design has to cater to families and kids, because a lot of families go on cruises, therefore a lot of kids. So on most cruise lines, most cruise ships, they have areas for kids, for daycare, for teenagers, arcades, and all that kind of stuff. Which on an Atlantis cruises are adults only, and those areas are like basically unused. We don't really need a daycare on an Atlantis cruise, honestly. But a Virgin ship, the whole ship was designed from the ground up, as all the cruise line, to be 18 plus. So they have things like tattoo parlors on all their ships, which I don't think exists on any other cruise ship, really. But there are some other cruise ships that have like cool things like go-kart tracks and things like that, which is like a little more family. A tattoo parlor is not family friendly, for example. And they have karaoke rooms, so it's just a little bit more like suitable in a way for the Atlantis cruises, which are obviously 18 plus. So that's a little bit about Virgin, the cruise line itself, and about the ship itself, the Resilient Lady that's going to be sailing this particular cruise. And let's go right to the itinerary. Like I said, it is a 7-night, 1-week cruise. So February 22nd, 2025 is when it departs San Juan. And I'm just going to go through the itinerary as it is published at the time that I record this. And I'll have to put the disclaimer before I move on. The itineraries are always subject to change. I've been on cruises where the week before the cruise sets sail, they've announced an itinerary change for things like weather and other factors that are usually out of the control of the cruise line, and also for Atlantis as well. I've been on cruises where they've had to change some of the ports during the cruise, and I've also had it where even months before, sometimes they change the itinerary. So itineraries are always subject to change. Just keep that in mind. But as it is today, the first full day, February 23rd, it will be at Tortola. By the way, I don't know where any of these places are, but it's going to Tortola in the Caribbean on the first day, February 23rd. The 24th is a sea day. On the 25th, it will be at Bridgetown, Barbados. On the 26th is Castries, St. Lucia. I hope I'm pronouncing these right. And then on the 27th, it's at St. John's, Antigua. February 28th, the last full day, is Philipsburg, St. Martin. And March 1st, a week later, it comes back to San Juan in the morning. So that's your itinerary for this cruise as it is published today. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the noteworthy rates that I see that's been published for right now, and some of the more noteworthy rooms and cabins you might be interested in. And then after that, I'm going to wrap up with some of my recommendations, and I'm just going to talk about who I think this cruise is going to be good for, maybe not good for, what the vibe is like, and things like that. But let's go through some of the more noteworthy things in terms of the rooms that are available and the rooms that are not available. So to kick it off, I think this cruise hasn't been on sale for that long. Right now, it's on alumni pre-sale. So the way Atlantis does their sales is if there is a equivalent cruise from last year. So almost every year they do have a exotic or Southern Caribbean cruise in like February/March. Okay. So this one is the Exotic Caribbean Cruise for 2025. They did have a equivalent cruise of this one in 2024. I think it was called like the exact same thing. Most years they do. So in that case, people that were on the equivalent cruise from the previous year, they get first dibs to book next year's cruise. They get first dibs to book this one for 2025 if they sail the same one in 2024. And usually how that works is, assuming it's a similar ship, they get to book the exact same cabin that they had before, like the exact same cabin, the exact same number cabin. So it's kind of a little bit like take it or leave it. They can rebook the same room or they can choose not to. Then the cruise goes to alumni presale. Alumni is anyone who's ever sailed with Atlantis before, doesn't matter what sailing they've done with Atlantis. And that's the stage we're at right now. And that's how I got the email with all the information, because I am a Atlantis alumni. And that takes like maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks. It varies like a little bit. But it's usually roughly how long alumni sales last for. And alumni, including the people who were on the equivalent cruise from last year, they should get slightly better pricing compared to when it goes onto general public sale later on. So if I quote any prices in this section of the podcast, I'm quoting only the alumni prices. And later on, when it goes on to general pre-sale for the general public, the prices could be a little bit higher. So before you book, just make sure you're looking at the prices that are applicable to you and just double check it before you commit. Okay, let's first talk about stuff that's sold out or not sold out. In last week's episode, when I was talking about the Thanksgiving cruise, we didn't have to do this because I have predicted and still predict that the Thanksgiving cruise sailing out of Florida for 5 days, it's not going to sell out, because Thanksgiving is like a time where people usually see family, or maybe they get together with friends. It's not so much that they're going to go take a cruise, but some people will. But I don't predict high demand for that one. However, the Southern Caribbean cruise, like I said, that happens almost every year, February or March, that usually has a decent chance of selling out. Looking at the current information that I have from Atlantis, some of the rooms have started to sell out already. So usually on most Atlantis cruises, this is the order in which things start to sell out. Usually you get the cheapest interior rooms sell out first. The cheapest rooms sell out first, because that's like the cheapest way to get onto a cruise ship. And for most cruise ships, they have ocean balcony rooms as the most plentiful number of rooms. So like in terms of types of rooms, you have interior rooms that have no windows, no view, no nothing. You have window view rooms where you have like a window that you can see out of. And then you have ocean balcony rooms, okay? On most cruise ships, most of the cabins are ocean balcony rooms. And then the rest is like some mixture of interior rooms and also window rooms. Depending on the layout of the ship, I feel like interior rooms is probably the second most populous in terms of quantity beside balcony rooms. And then third runner-up would be like the window rooms, where you just get like a window, because those have to be like on outer edges of the ship, so it's like harder. But interior rooms are like easy to like just throw onto a ship. So very roughly, that's how it is. But usually the cheapest rooms get snapped up first. And so it is with this cruise. So interior staterooms, let's start there. There are 3 categories of interior staterooms. You have an I4. All of these have like codes, by the way. So I4 is called the Social Insider. That's sold out. They have the IN, the Insider, quote unquote. That's sold out. And those 2 classes of staterooms are the cheapest ones. And most rooms go by double occupancy. So when you look at in the Atlantis website, you look on the pricing for any cruise, the vast majority of the prices assume double occupancy. That means that's the price per person before fees if there were 2 people staying in that room. That's not the price for the room. That's the price for one person, assuming 2 people will be paying each their share of the fare for that room. Okay, if you want to stay in that room all by yourself, it's going to be double that price. Okay, that's what I mean by the prices are usually double occupancy. Now, the third interior stateroom that's available, this is the only interior stateroom option that's not sold out, is actually a single occupancy rate. And it's called the I1 is the code, and it's called the Solo Insider room. And that particular one, that's a single occupancy rate. So that's why the dollar amount figure is so much higher than the other ones, because that single occupancy is a room that's designed, physically designed for only one person. Most cruise ships do not have rooms physically designed for just one person. Pretty much every room is designed to accommodate 2 people or more. Virgin does things a little bit different. They do have a small handful of rooms that are physically laid out just for a single person. If you really wanted like the cheapest way to get onto this cruise, the I1 Solo Insider option is the cheapest option for a solo traveler. If you want a room all to yourself, that's the cheapest option that's still available right now. If you listen to last week's podcast for the Thanksgiving cruise, it's on the exact same ship. And I gave some advice about how I did not recommend the I1 Solo Insider room, because these rooms that are physically designed just for one person to stay in, you have like a twin size bed, a narrow bed. The other rooms that are regular rooms designed for double occupancy are queen size beds. The other thing is the rooms themselves is much smaller. So the regular double occupancy interior staterooms are 177 square feet. Sorry for those who are not from the US and are living in the metric system, but you can do the conversion. But it's 177 square feet for a regular double occupancy size interior stateroom, the ones that are sold out. And then for the Solo Insider one, that's the only interior stateroom type that's available, still available. It's 105 square feet. So that's like quite a bit smaller. So, if you wanted the cheapest way to still get on this cruise, assuming that it's not sold out by the time you book it, this is the cheapest way for a solo traveler to get on this cruise. But just note that you're going to be in a room that's going to be quite small, 105 square feet. It's a very small room. And it's going to be a like twin size bed. It's not going to be a queen size bed. It's going to be a small, narrow bed. And don't bring a lot of luggage, because the room is so small, you're not really going to have much room for, 3 giant suitcases. So just keep that in mind. But as of right now, that's the cheapest way to get on this cruise as a solo traveler. Let's look at the ocean view rooms, and we'll look at the balcony rooms, and I'll come back with some recommendations, okay? Okay, ocean view rooms. So this is not where you have a balcony. This is where you have a window that looks out onto the ocean. The window does not open, okay? There's no outside access. And there's only 2 types of rooms. The one that's not available is called the V1 Solo Sea View. So just like for the interior staterooms where they have one category, there's a type of room that is designed for solo travelers. They have the same thing for the ocean view rooms. So this is the V1 Solo Sea View. It's the name of that room type. And it's, again, a room that's physically designed and laid out for solo travelers. It's smaller compared to the other ocean view staterooms that are meant for double occupancy. It's 130 square feet. That one is sold out. The only other type of ocean view stateroom that they have, which is available right now, is called the VW, the Sea View. 189 square feet, and that's a regular double occupancy room. For a double occupancy room, this is the cheapest entry point right now that's still available. Is a ocean view room. Some people don't care for ocean balconies. Like me personally, on a lot of ships, you have to pay like $300, $400, $500 more to go from a window view room, an ocean view room, to an ocean balcony. Usually, personally, for myself, I don't really enjoy being on a balcony. If I want to be outside, I go up to the pool deck. Having my own balcony, I wouldn't pay. It's nice. I wouldn't personally pay $300, $400, $500 more just to have the balcony if the room was otherwise identical. So in this case, if you really didn't want a balcony for some reason, there are some people that just don't like balconies and would prefer a window view room, then this is the option. However, on this particular cruise, the next jump up from the ocean view room with a window is the cheapest balcony room. And it's only $100 more in terms of the double occupancy price. For just $100 more in the fare, $14.99 versus $15.99, you will get a balcony. Like the room itself is pretty much identical. The inside of it, it's pretty much the same size, plus or minus 4 square feet that you're not going to notice. But you get a 40 square feet balcony. So it's usually on most cruise lines, the difference between the ocean view rooms and the balcony room is more. Here, it's only $100 more per person for 2 people to a room. I'm going to say just get the balcony room, honestly. Okay, let's talk about the balcony rooms, okay? Ocean balcony rooms. Again, these are the most populous types of rooms on most cruise ships, including this one. All of them are available to book. Like I said, usually the cheapest rooms go out first. And ocean-backed rooms are not the cheapest, even though I feel like sometimes, like in this case, some of them are better value for what you get versus the cheapest rooms. So what I think is one of the better values of all the rooms is this one. That's $15.99. This is the least expensive ocean view balcony room. It's the TL code, and it's a limited view sea terrace. So on a cruise ship, they pack as many cabins in as they can, and they put as many balcony rooms as they can. Balcony rooms have more of a premium. So sometimes, depending on where the balcony room is located and where they decide to cram them, sometimes the view is a bit obscured. I've been on cruise ships where I've been in the balcony room and I'm looking at half of a lifeboat, because on that particular cruise ship, the lifeboats are secured kind of on the outer sides of the ship and on certain decks. And in certain rooms on those decks, you're going to get an eyeful of just the side of one of those lifeboats, those emergency evacuation lifeboats. So if you just want some fresh air, you don't really care that much about like having like a view, then just for $100 more than an interior ocean view room, I think this is actually a pretty good value. The next step up is going to be another $150, where it's not a potentially obscure limited view room. It's just what you would call a standard run-of-the-mill ocean balcony room without an obscured view. It's the same size room. It's just that for $250 more, the view isn't going to be obstructed. So having a fully unobstructed view of the ocean from your balcony is really important, and it's worth $250 for you. Again, double occupancy prices. Then yeah, that's called the TR, or the sea terrace, quote unquote. There's 3 other classes of balcony rooms. They get to be progressively like a little bit more expensive. There's an XL sea terrace. TX is the code for that one. That's like another $250-ish, and that room is physically bigger. So if you find regular size rooms a little bit small, you don't mind paying a little bit extra, but you don't want to swing for the fences and get a suite, which is much, much more expensive. They have some XL size or slightly larger ocean view rooms that, you pay an extra $250. That could be worth it for some people. Now, the special rate to round out all these balcony staterooms is called the T1, or the solo terrace rate. And this is where it's a single occupancy rate. The rate is designed for solo travelers, and you get a ocean view balcony room for the single occupancy price, the alumni price of $2,909, $3,000. Okay. So if you were, in most cases, they don't usually have single occupancy rates for balcony rooms. So if you're a solo traveler and you wanted to get your own balcony room, it actually happens quite often. People would be paying, in this case, something like $3,200 to $3,600, because as a solo traveler, you have to pay double the double occupancy fare. But here for $3,000, there's a rate that's just for solo travelers, and you get your own, very own, no sharing ocean view balcony room. The fine print with this one is you don't get to choose the exact balcony room that you will be in. Okay. Most times when you book with Atlantis, you get to choose the exact stateroom that you want to be in during the booking process. If you were to book using Atlantis' website on their online reservation system, as an example, as you go through the booking process, it actually shows you a map. And you can look at the map, look at all the different decks, and you can see which rooms for that particular category of cabin you're trying to book is available or not available. And you get to pick the exact room during the booking process. You do not get to do this with this single occupancy rate T1 solo terrace room type. Okay. On the Thanksgiving cruise, last week's episode, I mentioned that the T1 solo terrace rate was the best value for a solo traveler. For this particular cruise, the offerings and the pricing is a little bit different because you don't get to pick the room. if this happens to be a very full or like a sold out cruise, I think what would happen is Atlantis would just give you, for lack of a better term, the crappiest balcony rooms to the people that book the solo terrence rate, because you don't get to pick the room Atlantis does. And for all the other balcony rooms, the customer, the cruisers, get to pick it when they book that room. So people are going to pick like the nicest, best rooms for themselves. And then Atlantis would just come out like 1 or 2 or 3 days before you set sail, maybe a week before you set sail, and just give you the leftovers. And chances are, the more full a cruise is, the more fully booked the cruise is, the crappier of a room Atlantis is going to give you. You're getting the leftovers, right? If the cruise wasn't going to sell out, it's only going to be like 50% sold, there's going to be lots of nice, shiny, awesome balcony rooms for Atlantis to give you. They have no incentive to give you a crappier one when a whole bunch of nicer ones are available and no one else is buying them anyways. So in last week's episode, for Thanksgiving cruise, I predict and still predict it was not going to sell out. So I was like, well, it's probably not going to sell out. The chance of them giving you a really crappy room, if you book the solo terrence rate where they pick the room and not you, was therefore not going to be very high. I think there is a decent chance, again, this cruise will sell out. Therefore, if you were traveling solo and you want a balcony room, if you really don't care that you might have like a crappy view, I think the rooms themselves are pretty much all identical on the interior. The only thing is maybe it won't be in like the best location, might be a little bit further away from the elevators, for example, a slightly longer walk, but the ship isn't super big anyways. Or maybe you're going to have a only partial or obstructive view of the ocean if Atlantis is going to pick the room for you. And you would be saving, as a solo traveler, just $200. So if you want to save $200, then yeah, you can do that. But for a lot of people, I think they'll probably rather pay $3,200 instead of $3,000 and just be able to pick the type of room. Yeah, the trade-off is marginal. Let's put it that way. But I want to point that one out based on a lot of cruises. They don't have solo single occupancy rates for ocean balcony rooms. I just want to highlight that. The only other type of rooms that are available are suites. But if you are looking to book a suite, Atlantis has a different system for that. You have to fill a form online, and then they have some like special, weird, unique process for figuring out who gets to book a suite or whatnot. So we're not going to get into that. That's for like the 1% of the people that want to book a suite. But 99% of you are just going to be booking an interior room, a ocean view window room, or a ocean view balcony room. So those are all your options there for rooms. Okay, and to wrap it up, and I'm going to talk about who I think this cruise is going to be good for and what the vibe of the cruise is going to be like. So, like I said, just like 3 weeks before, we have that big party cruise sailing to the Caribbean. It doesn't have the same itinerary. It comes out of Florida and not San Juan, and the stops are different as well. That's a party cruise. The party boys are there. That cruise has been getting rowdier and rowdier over the years. It can be good or bad. If you are a party boy, a little like me, you want the parties to be like big and kicking, for there to be people there. That's great. That means all the party boys are going on to that big one, which means very little party boys, at least the hardcore ones, are going to go on this one. So it was in 2023 where I actually went on both of the Caribbean cruises at the start of the year. That particular year, they did the Southern Caribbean cruise earlier in the year. It was a little bit of a weird year because it wasn't out of San Juan, so it wasn't like the exotic cruise. But basically, they still had 2 Caribbean cruises. Early in the year, they had the small one first, and then they had like the big one like a couple weeks afterwards. But most years, the vibe from all my research and all the people that I know is somewhat similar. This is not going to be a party cruise. They're still going to have all the Atlantis dance parties. They still have DJs. So in terms of the programming on paper, they'll still have a dance party every night, most likely on the pool deck. and then there'll be like 2 or 3 tea dances in the afternoons, which is standard for Atlantis. Nighttime party every single night, 2 or 3 afternoon tea dances. But if you were looking for the party to like fill up, this is not going to be the cruise. This is more of a cruise for if you want to just relax, get off the ports a little bit. You might be interested in going to the party just to like 1-2 step a little bit. But partying is not really on your agenda, or it doesn't feature very highly. You want a more relaxing cruise, a slower paced cruise, at least compared to the other Atlantis cruises. This is going to be more of the vibe of this particular cruise. Honestly, anyone that remotely likes partying is going to be on that big one in February, like a few weeks before. They're not going to come cruise again 3 weeks later to go on this one to party. So they will still have the parties, but it's not going to be very big parties in terms of like how many people are going to go to the parties. It's not really the main mission. It's not the usual vibe for this particular cruise. So just keep that in mind. If any of the ports are interesting to you, this is going to be a cruise where people are somewhat more likely to get off the ports. I'm not, just disclaimer, I'm not really like a get off the ship type of a person. I'm just like a stay on the ship. The port days is when I go to the gym and rest up. That's just me. And I've always said, like, you can do the cruise any way you want. There's no like wrong way in terms of like what activities you choose to partake in terms of which ports you get off of and don't get off on. On this one, I went through the list of ports, and none of the ports are like super fancy. There's gonna be stuff to do at the different ports, obviously, but it's gonna be a more chill, mellow cruise. You know what I think this is a really good cruise for is for couples. Actually, I'm serially single, but I think just it's funny. I'm recommending this for couples when like I've been single all my life. But I was thinking in the beginning of 2023 when I went on this equivalent cruise at that time, similar size ship. It was not on Virgin. It was on a different cruise line. I was like, wow, this is a really great cruise for like couples or like small groups of like really close friends. I distinctly had that memory. So I think if that applies to you, you and your significant other or significant others, you're not really like party people, but you guys like the idea of the cruise. You guys want a relaxing time on the cruise, and the itinerary and the ports appeal to you. And this is maybe like a good time for you to get away. This is kind of like the tail end of winter, right? February into March. It's still winter time. And it's actually kind of a good time to maybe take a cruise because you're going to be escaping, depending on where you are, where you live in the world, you're escaping maybe some of the worst of the winter weather. In February, it can still be pretty gnarly in like the eastern seaboard in the United States, for example. You could just want to go somewhere warm, and it's not really a part of the year where it's like super busy for travel, because a lot of people travel, in the US at least, for Thanksgiving in November. They travel for Christmas. They travel for New Year's, for example. All the kids are back in school by then, so it's not like the most expensive time, most busy time to like travel somewhere. Yeah, I think it's actually really good. I just think it's really good for like couples, or you have like a small, close group of friends, and you're not really like party people. I'm just gonna keep using that term. You know who you are, and you know if you're not. Yeah, I think it's really good. I just remember, I'm a party person, but when I was on a cruise, I went by myself, by the way. I knew a few people on the cruise, but I went by myself, and it was so nice and so relaxing. And, a few of the nighttime parties I did go. I didn't go to every nighttime party, but some of the nights I was like, this is a relaxing cruise. I'm just going to have a second dinner. I'm just going to stuff my face with cheesecake. I'm just going to not go to the gym. I'm just going to bed early and watch some TV, or like just catch a show. They still have all the same, generally same entertainment program on all these cruises, regardless of what kind of crowd and what kind of people are on it. So yeah, if you're a couple, or even if you just like anyone who wants a nice relaxing cruise, and I can also see this being really nice for like a romantic getaway, for people that are not like hardcore partiers, or like a small close group of friends that just want to have a nice relaxing vacation together. It's really nice. A lot of the times when I talk about Atlantis cruises, you've seen any of my YouTube videos, because I'm a party boy. I like to go on the cruises that tend to have a more like party boy crowd that goes, which is why I usually go on the big one in January or February. But, there are also cruises that Atlantis throws on where it's for a nice, relaxing time. And I totally appreciate that. So I think this is, if the timing and works for you, even the itinerary doesn't knock your socks off. You don't have to get off the ship. I think that's my recommendation. In terms of whether I think this is good for a first-time cruiser, that depends on what your expectation and perception of an Atlantis cruise is as someone who's never been on one before. If your perception is, or your desire is an Atlantis cruise where it's more calm and relaxing, I think this could be a decent one to go on as a first timer. Otherwise, I think maybe I wouldn't recommend a first timer pick this one. If you're a first timer and you don't have any other people to go to the cruise on with you, and you're really not a party person, maybe. But I feel like there are other better cruises you could pick as a first timer to go on. Maybe not this one. If you're like a super introvert and you're going solo and you don't like to party at all, and you want to try an Atlantis cruise for the first time, I think that's the only situation where I might recommend this one for a first timer. But I feel like for most first timers, in terms of how most new cruisers perceive Atlantis cruises, this is maybe not going to give you the best experience as your first Atlantis cruise. This tends to be more for alumni, for repeat cruisers that just want a quieter cruise. All right, so that is your deep dive into the recently announced Atlantis Exotic Southern Caribbean cruise for 2025. Little preview, next week, I have been getting some comments on the YouTube versions of these podcast episodes that are on my YouTube channel, just Joey T. And next week, I do read your comments. I'm not ignoring you. Next week, I'm going to do a little Q&A on some of the questions and requests for advice that I've been seeing pop up in the YouTube comments recently. So between now and probably like next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, just as soon as you can, if you have questions about anything Atlantis cruise related, if you have anything you want advice on at all, just go as soon as you can, comment on any one of the YouTube versions of this podcast on my YouTube channel, just Joey T. And when I record next week's episode, we're going to do a little bit of a Atlantis cruise Q&A. But until next time, bye y'all.